So there's this weirdly pervasive idea of Kanye West being a kind of man of the people and someone who, although he exists in this Hollywood fame kind of sphere, is somehow different from that environment. And it's almost like he's one of us and he's trapped in this kind of machine, and that he represents something and stands for something. And I myself kind of believed this for a time. And I think a lot of this belief stems from a kind of desperation to believe that there is someone in that world, a major figure in that world, who's not just a complete ghoul. But that's a lie. He is just like a Hollywood ghoul, a fame-obsessed, attention-craving Hollywood ghoul surrounded by Satanism and perversion and just complete sort of immoral depravity. So, first up, we have Kanye West at one of Diddy's many parties. Kanye West, who also turned up to court to defend Diddy, who's accused of obviously pretty horrible stuff, raping men and women, secretly filming people, having sex so that he can then blackmail them. He's on camera knocking out his wife, who he used to allegedly force to have sex with other men. It's fairly inconceivable that Kanye West was going to these parties and hanging out with these people and didn't know what was going on at them, just like most of the people there who claim they didn't know. It's fairly obvious that, you know, these people were in the loop. They weren't being excluded from the talk, from the rumors, from the behind the scenes chatter and gossip. So obviously he knew about all of this stuff that was going on. You might say that was a one-off. Maybe he just has a particular affinity for Diddy. Here were Kanye West's thoughts on Bill Cosby being accused of drugging and raping, I believe, over 60 women. So we have here, Bill Cosby innocent, all caps. Not the nicest thing to say. I'm not one for sort of trial by public opinion, but I think when you've been quite firmly and concretely accused of drugging and raping over 60 women, it's kind of hard to imagine that that could be a conspiracy. And then there are the other people that he associates with, like Travis Scott, that always kind of baffled me. Back when I did buy into this idea of Kanye West being someone who was kind of different and who had a message, which, by the way, there isn't really one in his music. Like, you know, when you sort of grow out of that, you realize like there isn't really a message in his music. It's all self-aggrandizement. It's pretty much all about, well, you saying it's about the self is being overly generous. It's about himself in a very self-oriented way. Even when it's about God or Jesus, it's not really about God or Jesus. It's again done in a very self-aggrandizing, attention-seeking kind of way. But I was always baffled that he would choose to associate with someone like Travis Scott, who is a terrible artist, a terrible person, a moron, like he can barely speak, and is, I think, a very bad person and has had an extremely toxic and negative, cancerous effect on the youth. Travis Scott, who, it's one thing to be a grown-up rapper who talks about sex and drugs and crime and guns, but Travis Scott does tie-ins with McDonald's and Fortnite and markets his music to children, and then he has songs literally with names like Drugs You Should Try It. It's like, it is satanic, whether you believe in Satan or not, whether you're religious or not. For all intents and purposes, you can use that word as a kind of hold-all, like that is satanic. It's like evil to sort of deliberately push stuff like that on youth. It's just twisted and weird and wrong to market yourself as a kind of kiddies pop star and then to literally have a song called Drugs You Should Try It, which is just like, it's like grammatically fucked anyway. It doesn't make sense as a statement. It's just quite like a cringe-inducing title and obviously like a terrible thing to say to your fan base of mostly children. You know, I'm not saying people shouldn't talk about drugs in their music. I talk a lot about drugs in my music. I've had times where I've even questioned putting certain lyrics in, even when I've not been glorifying it. I've just been kind of talking about my own past use, and I felt, is this something I really want to put out there? And of course, like, there's no black and white clear moral standard about what you should or shouldn't put in music. There's a very, very kind of faint line somewhere. There's a grey area in between. But there are people like Travis Scott who don't even consider that there's any kind of responsibility for what they put out there. There's the morality even exists to them. You know, there's none of it. There is no morality or goodness in their music. It's completely devoid of intellect. It's completely devoid of goodness. It's completely devoid of virtue. It's completely devoid of love for anything but pleasure, basically just pleasure in themselves. That is, again, like whether or not you're religious, that is a satanic kind of idea. Like just live in the now just for pleasure, like sex and drugs and ego, and don't really think about what the consequences of that are or what happens as a result of it. And I think more broadly speaking, I kind of think that's the message in Kanye West's music as well. But certainly Travis Scott, and yeah, I mean, again, I was always baffled that he would associate with this guy, and more than associate with him. So we had obviously the horrific Astroworld incident. There's a fucking ton of weird imagery and weird stuff surrounding that, you know, if you're not conspiratorially minded, you won't be into. But whatever way you look at it, whether you dig deep into the weird sort of apparent occult side of that event and all of these people in general, these absolute ghouls that they surround themselves with, or you just look at it on the surface for what it was, just a disgusting lack of accountability and responsibility and a horrible tragedy where 10 people, mostly very young children, died. Again, one of them was 9 years old. What's a 9-year-old doing listening to stuff like this? What are you doing if you've made like mass market music for 9-year-olds where you talk about like killing people, and you have a song called Drugs, You Should Try It, and all of your music is about sex and drugs, and it's not even intelligent, it's not even clever music, it doesn't even show you both sides of it. Like, he's one of the worst rappers I've ever heard. I'm completely baffled by the idea that he's taken seriously as a musician. He's a horrible person. And there's a 9-year-old that, like, I don't know why a 9-year-old is even allowed there. How can a 9-year-old be at that concert? That is so perverse and weird and wrong. And you just shouldn't be okay with doing those songs in front of a 9-year-old. You just shouldn't, like, you shouldn't be okay with talking about stuff like that in front of a 9-year-old. Take the music context out of it. Like, imagine just saying stuff like that to a 9-year-old, you know? And you go, oh, well, his parents shouldn't have let him. Well, they did. Okay, his parents did let him go. Are you going to do it anyway? You know? You're going to go, no, I'm not talking about this to a 9-year-old. I'm not doing this. This is just weird. And he wasn't the only 9-year-old there, and he fucking died while Travis Scott was on stage mumbling "It's lit" into a fucking auto-tuned microphone. It was unbelievable. It was like an absolutely disgusting incident. And his, you know, apology video obviously has been like memed a lot, and that was very sad. It was very sad that was the best he could come up with. Like rubbing his face and acting all tired and mumbling. Just don't say anything. Just don't say anything. If you're not going to say more than that, don't say anything. There's clearly no respect for human life in his music. He just clearly doesn't have respect for human life. He clearly doesn't seem to care about what happened, in my opinion, at all. I think he cares about buying new chains and taking drugs and having sex and being popular. I think that's literally like that's like his remit, you know, mentally. The guy is like, clearly like there's something wrong with his head. So that's a very odd person to associate with. And that is one of many rappers he associates with, where you go, right, if you're supposed to be this guy who's like a cut above artistically, and you're a bit different and you're like a cultural icon, why are you associating with these morons who, like, the pinnacle of their intellect is like talking about blowjobs? Like, what's going on? Is this really what you want to promote? Is this really what you want to put into the world? That's very odd. And you can, for a lot of these things, you can go, oh, he's manic, he did this, he did that. Okay, but a lot of these are decisions he's made over decades to associate with certain types of people. He's decided that over decades, you know? If you know someone who, for example, behaves like a criminal, and he hangs out with nothing but criminals, you don't go, oh, that was a mistake he made once. You go, no, that's a lifestyle choice. That's a choice. That's who he's choosing to be as a person. That's not like a thing you did once, you know? That's not making a mistake. That's not a moment of madness. That's a lifestyle choice. Associating with people like Travis Scott is a lifestyle choice. So Billie Eilish, who I'm not a Billie Eilish fan. Obviously, I'm not the target audience for Billie Eilish. But shortly after the Astroworld incident, she stopped a concert, gave a fan an inhaler, and said, "I wait for people to be okay before I continue with the concert." I think a fairly innocuous remark. And I mean, look, say what you like about Billie Eilish. I don't agree with really any of her politics. Again, as I said, I'm not the target audience for her music. But I think there is like someone in there who's trying to be a good person, and she might be misguided. She might be like hopped up on attention and fame and everything else. She's definitely misguided in a lot of the stuff that she says and believes. But I do think there is someone there who genuinely is like trying to be a good person and who's trying to do and say what they think is right. Kanye West's response to her simply basically trying to set a good example on stage and saying, you know, I'm waiting to get this person an inhaler before I carry on with the concert. And plenty of artists do this, by the way. When you're doing these massive concerts, you have to understand you have some level of responsibility over the enormous crowd that's in front of you. And a lot of artists prior to this incident and after this incident make a huge point of making sure that people are safe, because people do get crushed. Stampedes do happen. And this is the kind of stuff you think about when you're a responsible person, when you're like a grown-up person, not when you're just someone who just wants to like mumble into a mic with autotune and have people tell you you're great and give you money and that you can just like buy new cars. When that's your whole worldview, you don't really think about other people. You don't really think about the consequences of your actions. So this was Kanye's response in all caps. "Come on, Billie, we love you. Please apologize to Trav and the families of the people who lost their lives. No one intended this to happen. Trav didn't have any idea of what was happening when he was on stage and was very hurt by what happened. And yes, Trav will be with me at Coachella, but now I need Billie to apologize before I perform." So again, it's this weird kind of faux sincerity, faux morality mixed in with this weird sort of like dictator complex kind of stuff. So it's, "We love you. Please apologize to Trav and to the families of the people who lost their lives." He's telling Billie Eilish to apologize to the families who Travis Scott did not apologize to. He's telling Billie Eilish to apologize. And then it's still mixed up in this, like, I need Billie to apologize before I perform, which is like, you can go, oh, he's having a manic episode. That's just narcissism. That's just narcissistic bullying. That's just, that's not being manic. Saying that a person who had nothing to do with it needs to apologize to your friend who was a large part of it happening. That's not being manic. That's just being, like a demented bullying narcissist. What should Billie Eilish apologize for? He's asking her to apologize for offending his friend who caused this incident, who didn't apologize for it himself. Then there's all the weird fashion stuff. So there's companies like Balenciaga and this whole high fashion world, which is worse than music. I mean, like, these people are disgusting. But first of all, like, there's nothing wrong with caring about clothes. There's nothing wrong with liking clothes. There's nothing wrong with fashion. But as a world, as an industry, it's sick and evil, and the effect it has on people is not good. Like, this is what's cool. This is what's expensive and luxurious. If you don't have this, you're bad. This is what cool people wear. This is how you should look. These people are sexy. You're not. These people have money. You're poor. Like, this whole world is very unpleasant. And that's if you put aside all the weird shit behind the scenes, all the weird symbolism, the weird ideological stuff. It comes off as satanic, whether you believe in Satan or you're a Christian or whatever you are. It comes off as occult. It comes off as satanic. It comes off as creepy. The whole world of fashion does. It's obviously rife with like abuse and weird behavior and creepy, nasty people. I'm not trying to judge the whole fucking industry. I'm sure there's tons of great people who just love fashion and love the industry. I understand I'm painting in quite broad strokes here. But it's a strange world to just swallow hook, line and sinker, I would say. And as someone who is sort of claiming to be a Christian and someone who's different and someone who's moving culture forwards, where am I hearing about this? Where are you telling us, like, there's a lot of fucking sick stuff going on in this world before you were personally wronged? Because that's what happened, is Kanye West was wronged. He was offended. Well, I don't even know if he was wronged. He felt he was wronged. He was offended. He felt angered by stuff that happened to him, and then suddenly the whole industry is bad and he has to speak out against everything and everything's wrong. That's not what happened. Something went wrong with him. Something went wrong. He felt bothered by things that people did to him. He felt slighted by people in these industries or people of certain like ethnic or religious backgrounds. And he made a very kind of vague attempt at making that like a bigger issue that somehow we're all embroiled in, when it's nothing to do with that. It's just completely about him. So he never said anything about any of this stuff. He was hanging out with the worst of the worst, like the biggest ghouls imaginable, the most nasty, Hollywood, creepy, sort of rapey, sus, weird people ever. Super powerful people, rubbing shoulders with them, desperate to go to their parties and events and hang out with them and be cool and be a name and be a face and be powerful and be important. And he never said anything about any of it. He never said, this industry is fucking weird. These people are creepy. They're raping people. They're saying weird shit. They're promoting weird stuff. They're putting weird imagery on everything to corrupt people's minds. They're doing all this. He never said any of it. The only time he did was after he was dropped by Balenciaga. And then they did this. I'm not even going to put the images in of this campaign that they did. But there was a very, very disgusting Balenciaga campaign with using children and like BDSM gear. And that sounds maybe like I'm being hyperbolic or it's an exaggeration. It's not. They were using children and like teddy bears and stuff and BDSM gear. And it was like the weirdest shit ever. And they've been doing stuff like that. I mean, that was a particularly egregious example, but this whole industry has been doing stuff like that for years. And he's been someone who's had a voice and has never said anything about it. Not once. That is not the first, nor will it be the last time that they do something creepy and sinister like that. All of Fashion Week and all of this shit, it's full of stuff like that. They're fucking weird people. There's something a bit more going on than just like, oh, I like these clothes. No, it's more than that. It's fucking weird. It's a weird world. It's a weird lifestyle. They're fucking weird people. And he's fucking weird for associating with them. So there's all of that. He's never said anything about any of these people. And then suddenly one day, he feels slighted. He feels he's not being respected. He feels whatever it is. It's some bullshit that happened to him. Every album that's come out lately, we hear about contracts. We hear about Nike. We hear about Adidas. We hear about they didn't want my shoes or something. They didn't something about like fucking t-shirts. And it's like, man, people have jobs. People work, 60 hours a week and they don't have enough money to pay their bills. People who listen to your music, who you never seem to mention or care about or talk about. And that's another thing, is like, he doesn't seem to care at all about his fans. And he has some very dedicated fans. I know that because I poked the hornet's nest in a previous video. He has some very dedicated fans who I think a lot of them are well-intentioned. I think a lot of them are genuinely misguided. Like, I think a lot of them are sort of bought into this cult-like vision of him. And they're just like normal people. A lot of them religious people, a lot of them people who want to believe there's something more to this world, to this music than what there is, which is it's just crap, basically. It's just dressed up crap. It's crap dressed in nice, clothes. They want to believe there's something more. And yeah, apart from the odd attention-seeking incident where he'll be on video and someone's caught him on video and he shakes hands with a fan and tells him something because, again, he gets a buzz out of this kind of attention and these kinds of incidents, there isn't really anything about that. Like, there's not really like a relationship between him and his fans. It's just a relationship between him and him. You are there to serve him. You are there to make him feel good. You're there to give him what he wants, which is basically attention and fame and money and respect and admiration. It's a very one-sided relationship between him and his fans. You compare that to certain other artists and the difference is stark. And there's like a pretty profound lack of gratitude and an entitlement. And all of these things, again, we're not talking about, there's one incident where he was a dick. No, there's like a long pattern of behavior going back decades of entitlement, narcissism, like total self-interest above all else. And those things can't be explained away with like, it's mental illness. You can't explain these kinds of lifestyle choices and these kind of recurrent behavior patterns as just mental illness, or at least as a manic episode. If you consider narcissism to be a mental illness, then yeah, sure. Yeah, when someone repeatedly jokes about being a narcissist and about sort of like not really caring about other people, and they make it part of their image, it's not just a silly thing. Like if someone does that publicly, then imagine what they're like in private. You should listen when someone tells you that. You know, if someone keeps basically telling you like I'm a piece of shit and they're sort of proud of it, then it's probably true. And again, yeah, I mean, none of this should matter. If you just enjoy his music, cool. But there's people who have, as I said, this kind of cult-like obsession with him, and they promote him as a kind of savior of pop culture and someone who is in a really positive way moving culture forward, which he hasn't done for decades. But as this kind of guy who's like, it's more than just music, you know? Particularly, as I want to get onto now, when it comes to the Jews. Obviously, if you ever criticize anything Kanye's ever said about the Jews, you're Jewish, apparently. I'm not Jewish. I'm of Irish descent. I probably look Jewish. So, yeah, thanks for all the comments calling me Jewish. I'm not Jewish at all, not by religion, not by ethnicity, not at all. It's one thing, in my opinion, to have concerns about like foreign ethnic groups or religions being maybe more a part of like American life or politics or culture than they should be. Totally understand that. It's one thing to have an issue with Israel, for example. None of that is where this comes from with Kanye. Again, it all comes from personal stuff. He was desperate to be around people in this industry, people who, like a huge number of the people he was desperate to be associated with and desperate to be accepted by were and are Jewish. And he never said anything. He never cared. He never really took a genuine interest in what's going on in the outside world. For him, again, it's like fashion. Putting on the Trump hat it's like a metaphor for how he looks at this stuff. It's just putting on a hat. It's not real, it's not thoughtful, it's not considered, it's not measured. And again, you go, no, he's manic. Okay, well, then you can explain away every single thing he's ever done by saying, oh no, he's manic. Sure, if you want to. I don't. But and I don't care that he put on a Trump hat. I don't think there's anything wrong with well, back then I don't really think there's anything wrong with liking Donald Trump. I think the whole thing has gotten a bit fucking sour now. But at the time, I felt like he was like very unfairly attacked. I thought it was pretty gross that the whole sort of celeb world rounded on him for it, and all his friends kind of turned on him. But regardless, it wasn't sincere anyway. He doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit about Trump. He doesn't give a shit about politics. He doesn't give a shit about what your life is like. He doesn't give a shit about what the world is like for working people. He doesn't give a shit about the state of the country. If he had a choice between a great country where he's a normal person or a shithole of a country where he's the king, you know what he would choose. You know, like deep down, you know what he would choose. You might not want to believe it. You might outwardly deny it, but you know he would choose to be the king of a burning shit heap of a country rather than be a normal person in a nice functioning country where working people had good lives. So yeah, putting on the Trump hat, it's how he does everything. It's putting on a hat. The Jewish thing, he thought, this could be an interesting next move for me. This could be a part of my long line of increasingly kind of desperate and mad attention-seeking antics. Including, by the way, the religious thing. That was one of them. That was like, this is my new style. This is my new fashion. And you see it with these people who are obsessed with fashion. That obsession is not limited to clothing. It's also about coming off as a certain style of person. Like for a while, he was like, I'm a kind of 4chan guy. And for a while, he was like, I'm a kind of like luxury. Like I'm like this kind of like Hollywood royalty, heritage kind of guy. And then there was like, I'm this low-key Christian guy and I'm a man of the people. And it's fucking bullshit, man. It's fashion. Just like putting the hat on, the Trump hat, it was like, what if I just put on a fucking Trump hat? Wouldn't that would really give him something, wouldn't it? That would be interesting. That would really mix things up. Let me just put the red hat on. And he fucking loved it. And I'm sure there's a part of it that feels bad. There's a part of it where he's like, fuck, people are really coming at me and this is quite intense and horrible and I'm losing things because of this. But there's another part of it is like, what if I just fucking put the hat on? Like, I bet that would, that'll really fucking stir shit up because that's what I do. you don't do that habitually for decades by mistake. You just don't. I also do think there's a pretty strong argument to be made that the mental illness is something that is very much leaned into for personal gain and used also as an excuse, and is greatly exaggerated by himself, and is also something that like there is a level of responsibility to work on yourself and control yourself and to not lean into like your absolute worst tendencies. But of course there's been a great deal of personal benefit for him, and so one of the things that has consistently lured him further and further down this path of being more unhinged is the fact that it's had personal benefit. It's gotten him attention and money and fame and success, and it's been part of his image as an artist that he's very keen to control. So anyway, stuff about the Jews. Like, I don't think any group is beyond criticism or reproach. I think you should be allowed to criticize groups as a whole if you want to. I don't see anything wrong with that. The way he did it was not intelligent or insightful or interesting, and as I said, it was completely self-serving. It was because he's hanging out with all these weird fucking fashion people, these industry moguls and shit, and at a certain point it went sour, and maybe his antics weren't going over well anymore. Maybe he felt he wasn't getting the respect he deserved. Maybe he didn't know how to navigate certain situations and he was pissed off by it, and he kind of put that onto the whole world. He doesn't know the average Jewish person. He doesn't know anything about geopolitics. He doesn't know anything about how America is run. He just knows what's going on in his immediate world, in the fashion world, in the music industry, and that some high-up Jewish people pissed him off, basically. The text he received from that personal trainer was fucking disgraceful, by the way. Obviously, it's like absolutely disgusting. But that text doesn't vindicate him. It's just that guy is a weird, creepy, scary piece of shit who's a prime example of exactly what's so fucking weird about the world that Kanye himself has desperately made sure to be a part of for decades, where shit like that has been going on all the time. And you want to talk about drugging people and making them feel weird and seem weird and making sure that they don't have good relationships with their families anymore and ruining their lives and degrading their souls and spirits. Well, he's defended quite a lot of people who are accused of doing exactly that. So, yeah, it's not as simple as this Harley, whatever his name is, guy is bad and Kanye is good because there can only be a good guy and a bad guy in every situation. No, it's not as simple as that. That shit that guy sent him, I can't believe someone would send. I can't believe that guy got away with that. Basically, like that should be a crime to say that. But that's used by people to then go, see, Kanye's right. Everything he said was right. Look. It's like, no, you know, if Kanye was saying this guy is a piece of shit and whoever this guy, whatever he was, is a fucking weirdo and a creep and he's clearly more than just a personal trainer. If that was what he was saying and we saw those texts, we'd go, yeah, he was 100% right. But that's not what he was saying. So again, a lot of the people who comment on any criticism of Kanye and the stuff he says about Jewish people, they themselves have a much more in-depth or realized kind of interpretation of Jewish people or of these kind of overall global issues as a whole than Kanye does. And they're kind of projecting their own obsession with it onto him. And they go, oh, he's just like me. He thinks just like me because he's talking about the Federal Reserve and about Palestine and about meddling with... He's not talking about that. He doesn't care about that at all. One time he held up some fucking image that he found on 4chan earlier that day that he looked at for fucking 10 seconds while he was taking a shit. And people are like, he's our guy. He gets it. He doesn't. He doesn't care about that. I promise you, he doesn't give a shit. There's so much he could do and say that would be powerful, and he doesn't. His reason, by the way, for changing his mind was he was watching 21 Jump Street and he realized he likes Jonah Hill. So I think that tells you a bit about how serious this was. If I can put the clip in, I'll put it here, of him talking also about Palestine.
Your thoughts on Palestinians?
Crazy and misinformed.
Palestinians?
What'd you say?
Your thoughts on the Palestinians?
I don't have enough information on that. I'm straight up from south side of Chicago, born in Atlanta. I don't have enough information. It's love for everybody, but don't pull me to that conversation. I got 14 kids dying every week in my city. You know what I'm saying? So talk to me about that.
Yes. All right, thank you, Connie.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thank you, Kanye.
Because you might think, okay, if someone hates Jews, or at least they're critical of them, they might mention Palestine as part of that. You might think, oh, well, it's kind of, because they've gotten, in the same way if someone in the 1950s said they hated Germans, you might go, look, you shouldn't hate all Germans. But there'll be a part of you might go, okay, you have this reason for it, right? There's nothing to do with that. He says he doesn't care about Palestine. He says he doesn't know about Palestine. I don't believe he has to know about Palestine. I don't believe he has to care about Palestine. But all the people who comment and call you like tiny hat and stuff, if you criticize him for any of the like really dumb stuff he said about Jewish people, because it's just dumb. It's not intelligent discourse. It's not doing anything to like raise the standards of public conversation. It's just making us stupider and more angry and more divided. That's all of most of what his statements do. Like, those people who comment that's part of their reasoning, and he doesn't even agree with that. He doesn't even agree with you. He doesn't even care. Like, if you were to sit there going on your rants about like tiny hats and the Jews and Israel, to him, he'd be fucking bored, and he'd be like, you're fucking poor and ugly and not important, and I'm leaving the room. And you'd be sat there thinking, oh, I thought we were on the same page, Kanye. I thought you and me were the same. And it's like, no, he doesn't give a toss. Like, I promise you, he doesn't fucking care at all about any of that. And, yeah, that's your fucking business if you do. I'm not even really trying to talk about that in general as an issue. I'm just trying to say this is part of the cult, the idea that like, no, I'm Christian and I'm part of this sort of spiritual war, and and he's our leader and he's like a representative of us. He's fucking not, man. It's the same, I would say, actually, as being a sort of right-wing person who wants to see certain things in America and wants to see certain things represented culturally in the world, and thinking Trump is like a representative of that. And this isn't a judgment on whether or not those ideas or those politics or those things are good or bad. It's just that is not someone who cares about you or your beliefs. That's someone who cares entirely about themselves. And in both cases, it's like obscenely obvious that these people are just complete megalomaniac narcissists. And people, because they're getting this crumb of something they want, they will deny anything because they are so desperate not to have the weird fucking slimy neoliberal president, or the even more obvious like Hollywood celebs, the alternatives to Kanye West. They're so desperate to believe that there is this thing that's different, that's important, that represents them, that they'll just deny anything. It's like someone who's in like an abusive relationship with some nutter, and the person gives them something that they want, some kind of validation. So they'll just deny everything bad that this person does and ignore it and overlook it and accept it as long as they get what they want from it. And I think that's what's going on with this Kanye fandom. There's also, I mean, again, talk about choosing who to associate with. He's married into one of the most ghastly families ever. Like, if you actually look at the net effect that family has had on the world with their influence and power, BBLs, fake lips, surgery, being a slut, basically, like, they have poisoned multiple generations of young women into thinking like the most important thing is just to be like, it's just for people to want to fuck you, and that you shouldn't be happy with how you are now. You should change yourself. You should heavily modify your God-given appearance. You should do anything you can, even if it destroys the expressiveness of your face or your ability to like move your body correctly or your health. You should do anything you can just for people to want to fuck you, because that's the most important thing in the world. To have social status, like a cheap form of social status that revolves around kind of wealth and an appearance of luxury and fuckability. That is the most important thing in the world. That is essentially the message that this family is promoting. People go, no, Kim actually is part of a law firm and she helped. Okay, that's Jimmy Savile did a lot of charity. Like, you can do good things and still overall your net influence on the world, what you choose to represent, what you choose to show people, how you choose to influence people, what you do on a daily basis is much more important. That people make so many excuses for this. People make so many excuses for all this. Think about the people like the men and women you know in your life, if they had like power and importance, the ones who you respect and admire, the good people you've known in your life, like family members and stuff, what kind of, like, if they were like influential, what would they try to influence people with? Would they take 100 photos of their arse a day? And if so, I think maybe you should like question the quality of people you're around and what you're exposing yourself to. But to be honest, I doubt that's the case anyway, because I think in real life, it's easier to see like what a good person is. People you've admired, parents, grandparents, relatives, friends, people who, you know, you respect and admire. Look at what they represent and what they associate themselves with on a daily basis, like what their lives revolve around. Is it attention? Is it their arse? Is it just like luxury and money and like who's got the nicest clothes and who is the best and the coolest and the most fuckable? Like that's fucking sad. And like, it's not just sad in the sense that it's sad that an individual would concern themselves so much with that, but it's also sad how much of an effect they've had on the world. And all of this like lip filler shit and all this, like, people are more insecure than ever. Not just young women, like people in general are more insecure than ever physically. People are having more cosmetic surgery than ever. It's, for example, in my like sort of socioeconomic bracket, it's becoming less and less normal just to be bald. Like I'm bald just naturally. I'm just bald. Like most men go bald at some point in their lives, but it's becoming abnormal. It's becoming abnormal to have like a big nose, for example, right? One of the reasons people keep calling me Tiny Hat in my videos when I criticize Kanye West. Like these things are becoming, if you have money, they're no longer normal. And it's not like okay kind of to just gracefully accept like who you are and just to be a human being and to accept that your value is in a bit more than that. And I'm not, again, this isn't a black and white thing. I'm not saying, oh, it's like wrong to ever change yourself or have cosmetic surgery. Like, no, it's not. Of course, people want to do that. People can do that. But when that is essentially what you are famous for, that's not by mistake. When that is your image, that's not by mistake. When for decades, that is what people see you as and what you've been promoted as and what you have pushed, that is not a mistake. When a whole family is centered around just like, you should be fucking hot, you should have a fucking big ass, you should have big tits, your lips are too small. That, when that is your life's work, ultimately, apart from the other stuff you do on the side that is, let's be honest, pretty fucking easy to do when you're like a billionaire, and you've got fuck all to do all day, apart from photo shoots. When that's your life's work, and by the way, which billionaires don't do some like charity stuff? All of these weird ghoulish people, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, they all do shit for charity. They all go, oh, I've got this cause, this foundation, this, and again, like, you know, Jimmy Savile, like all of the worst, most powerful and worst people ever, they've all done like good stuff. That's not the same as what you actually concern yourself with, what your mission in life is, and what you are overall as a person. You know, I'm sure most of you watching, right, if I gave you like $1 billion, like you probably do loads of really good stuff with it. Most people would. It's easy to do, and also most people, yeah, they want to. But like what people do for decades and what they surround themselves with and what they associate with is not an accident. It's not a manic episode. It's a pretty good indicator of who they are as people. I think it's really sick that this guy has promoted himself as Christian and as like a kind of messenger of God whilst hanging out with these kinds of people. I think it's obscenely disgusting that he's been like parading his wife around like a fucking dog, naked. How do you even, you know, I mean, you just can't, this isn't like, oh, there's a little thing that's a bit bothersome or something. This is just outright disgusting. He got sucked off in public on a boat, in front of people. Like people could see him getting sucked off in public. He also got his daughter to eat sushi off a naked woman, and they're now parading her around as like a celeb. And it's just, it's so disgusting. And I know this video will be filled with comments of people going, this thing he did, it was because of this, or why can't he do this, or why? It's like, just look at what sort of defending overall. And if someone said, by the way, because there's people who are not cool and they're not popular and they're not defended by people. If someone said, oh, Diddy has manic episodes and that's why he spikes people's drinks, allegedly. That's why he punched that woman. You wouldn't say that. Like, there's plenty of people who do fucked up weird shit. And if it's someone who's not on your side of the fence politically, you don't go, oh, but they're mentally ill, I feel sorry for them, they're actually a good person. You don't do that. You do that when you have like a cult-like obsession with someone. And it's just fucking weird. So yeah, that's pretty much all. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. Obviously, as I said, there'll be a lot of hate comments. That's fine. But I just think, and a lot of people just who are into this are like quite young. Like, I understand that. For years, I thought he was really cool. I thought he was great. I thought he represented something. And now when I look at it, I listened to Vultures, and it really struck me listening to that album. And especially now, you can see how the quality has gone down now that people don't want to associate with him. Like, people don't want to work with him anymore. Some people, And I thought, like, man, you've got all this time and money and experience, and you're basically just making an album about blowjobs. Like, it's basically just an album about blowjobs and, like, give me my respect. And I want to get a blowjob from a woman and she's got an arse. It's just like, you're like 50 and you're still obsessed with fucking blowjobs. And like, it's so, obviously rap culture in general is so fucking degenerate and it's become so stale and repetitive. But for someone who's meant to be different and alternative, and he goes away and he's like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong with this album. And he comes out and it's just like naked bitches and stuff. It's like, come on, man. Like even the good verses on that album, because I think Freddie Gibbs is a good rapper. Like, he's a talented rapper. He's a skilled rapper. But it's like, what is this about, really? It's about, like, I'm cool. I had sex. I sold drugs. Maybe there'll be another feature from someone who's like, I killed people. I come from a tough place. I had sex. I've got money. I had sex again. I've got more money. This time I had another blowjob. It's just like, all right, man, what are we doing here? Like, what is this stuff? And what are we've normalized it. We've been gaslit into kind of normalizing this and defending it and accepting it. And we shouldn't. It's fucking terrible. This shouldn't be our culture. This shouldn't be what is presented to us as good and worthwhile and normal and okay, because it's not. And so this isn't, oh, this should be banned, he shouldn't be allowed to do this. No, this is just, we should expect better and we should want better, and we shouldn't tolerate such a low standard of discourse or culture or entertainment or morality, and we shouldn't tolerate all this weird perversion and weird stuff. And yeah, no one's perfect. Like, he's made mistakes in his life, sure, but his whole life is not a mistake. His whole career is not a mistake. And I think overall, the things he chooses to say whenever there's a microphone in front of his face, I think they speak volumes about who he is as a person. People he associates with and wants to associate with, I think it speaks volumes about him as a person. I don't believe the Christian grift for a second. I think it's fucking disgusting. I think if you really believed in all that shit and you were embraced by that community as he was, you wouldn't then turn around and start doing and saying all the shit that he's done. Okay, it's a manic episode. I don't fucking care. Like, I don't care. It's still disgusting to be like, I'm a Christian, I'm doing Sunday service. Oh, here I am getting sucked off on a boat. Here I am getting my daughter to eat sushi off a naked woman. Like, here I am parading my wife around on a leash naked. No, that I don't care. I don't care if that's a manic episode. That's still bad. Like, you're still a bad person. I don't care. It's fucking disgusting. You're too old for it. You just need to sort it out. Like, where do you stop? Like, where do you stop using mental illness as a justification? Like, of course, it explains some stuff. Of course, we should be considerate and understanding. But I think there's a limit. I think there's a point where you go, okay, well then you can't appreciate anything good he does either, because you'll just say that was a manic episode too. So if there's no value placed on it besides is he or is he not mentally ill, what's the point of it? And you might as well just be like, oh yeah, Hitler was mental. He obviously was. He was a fucking deranged manic meth head. So does that just mean nothing he did was wrong? And yes, it's an extreme example, but the point I'm making is, like, there is a limit where you just go, nah, that's just fucking disgusting. Like, if if someone committed like a paedophilic sex crime, you wouldn't be like, oh, but he was having a manic episode. Like, it just doesn't work like that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Take care.
I've lived life in so much pain, I've lived life in so much pain. I recite, they'll know my name. I've invited so much shame, lights to life spilled over frame. I wish I could show my veins, I wish I could load the game. I hid hope in so much cane, I've been bracing so much change. I've been open, hopeless, strange. I've been overloading brain, I've been known to go insane. I've been toe to toe with crane, I've been known to throw a game. I've been overdosed on strain, I've been hopeless, broke the rain. There's leper under my clothes, breakfast never something I changed. I've resented something I go, making real so much. Lights to life spilled over frame. I wish I could show my veins, I wish I could load the game. I hid hope in so much cane. My story is ancient, modern and pain. I'm talking flames, I bob it, it drains. I walk my lane, I'm talking to strangers. All this is dangerous. All this aching made me numb, all this pain had made me. All this. Fuck, I missed some real. All this aching's made me numb, all this shaking made me come. All this pain in the summer, that's witness. Wasn't breaking, I was done. I walked to the flames, I walked it drains. I walked off my lane, I'm talking to strangers. All these people make me sick. I was me when they were dick. I was fiending, they were pricks. I'm the reason they exist. I will cease when they desist. My beliefs have made me this. Find my grief and ate it quick, like a decent plater. Eat all the meat from the pastry. Sleep on the beat and it's crazy. Eat all the meat from the eat for the beef. Eat all the meat from the I was done. Sleep on this beat and it's crazy. Even the beef from the face. Meat from the pastry. Sleep on the beat and it's crazy. Even the beef doesn't faze me. I was the reason they exist. I was in grief, I was crazy. I was a thief that made me sick. I wasn't speaking for native quick. I was a decent player. I was a thief, I'm saying. I was a thief. I was a thief, I was lazy. I was a thief. I was a chief, I was crazy. I was a thief, I was ace. I was a thief in a daisy. I've been less than my barber. 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 I've been less than my